And as we look forward to conversations and more, it is our extreme pleasure to have with us a power-packed panel discussion lined up for you who will be talking a lot about the rise of agile leaders, making the shift, and so much more. May I now extend a very warm welcome to all our panelists as we are all set to have them here on stage. May I extend a very warm welcome to Mr. C. Jayakumar, Executive Vice President and Head, Corporate Human Resources, Larsen & Toubro. May I request all of you to please put your hands together. May I extend a very warm welcome to Chandra Bhattacharjee, Corporate Human Resources Officer, Aditya Birla Chemicals, Fashion Yarn and Insulators, CFI Businesses. We welcome you, ma'am. Thank you so very much for joining us. Adding so much grace to this stage is Ms. Kavita Dasan, Chief People Officer, ABP Network. May I please request all of you to extend a very warm welcome to her. It is our immense pleasure to have amongst us Mr. Rajendra Mehta, CHRO, Welspun. Please put your hands together as he steps forward. And moderating this session is going to be a leader who believes in his team, believes in mentoring them, and believes in taking them forward. So who better than him to lead this session? May I please request all of you to put your hands together and welcome Mr. Ankit Bansal, founder and CEO, Sapphire Human Solutions, joining us here on stage. And as we look forward to exchange of ideas, a lot of experience sharing right here, we're hoping for it to be a very, very interactive panel discussion. So as I extend a very warm welcome to each of you, may I now hand over to Mr. Bansal. Sir?
Thank you so much. Thanks, Isha. Good evening, everyone. It's great to see so many HR luminaries in one room. And I want to thank each and every one of you for taking your precious time out and making it for today's event. At Sapphire, we believe agility is the single most virtue that makes you stand out in the crowd. We practice agility in our thinking, we practice it in our processes, the way we deliver complex searches for our clients, and most importantly, how we change and reinvent ourselves in this ever-changing and dynamic VUCA world. So for us, I think agility is the core virtue that we feel businesses should have. But today, we're going to talk about agility in HR. And who better to discuss than this fantastic, diverse panel that we have, bringing expertise across industries from infrastructure, technology, chemicals, textiles, media, and industrials. So can I have a round of applause for all the fantastic panelists today with us? So thank you everyone for taking time out. If I can start with Dr. Kumar, your opening remarks, Dr. Kumar, in the HR context, what does agility mean to you?
Thank you, Ankit. Long back, Jack Welch has told, if the rate of change outside is more than the rate of change inside, then the end is near, right? And we have also long back, we read the book, Who Moved the Cheese on Change. That time we didn't feel the real importance of that sentence. March 2020, suddenly the pandemic attacked and we have to close down. That time we felt really what agility means, how you have to gear up, how you have to act, how you have to keep the business alive, how you have to keep your employees safe. So I really felt what is the need for agility and in fact understood what is agility during that time.
I see. If I can bring Chandra on this. Chandra, your thoughts?
Yeah, so basically we have to understand where this word agile came from. So the agile basically came from the agile software development processes. And what does that mean? Actually, it means basically to be agile is to be experimental, to keep the customer in mind. So I think, and to listen to the customer very closely and to, fail forward fast. These are the defining things about agility. And then you have to look at what it means for HR. So that means we are just straight away talking something different here. Whereas because in HR we have long been, you know, a little bit bureaucratic. When anybody comes to us, we throw the rule book at them. So HR has to become employee centric, and so that is first. Secondly, HR should be experimental. HR should be, you know, trying out new things and not be afraid of failing. You know, so I think it's very nice and fascinating that you have taken up this topic about agility in HR. And it will help all of us to, and I look forward to the discussion today, to really think that how we can take a concept from what was, you know, software development really, and how we can bring it to, you know, the field of HR. So these are my opening thoughts, and we will build on it.
Absolutely. In fact, in building on that thought, Kavita, let's say I am the HR head, and my assessment is that my function lacks agility. So what is that path to become an agile HR organization? Where does the agile journey start?
Congratulations if you are the HR head. You know, agility itself has over 39 synonyms in dictionary if you were to look at. In reality, especially in HR, I think it's huge. It's much more. See, if we have to start the journey, it starts from a mindset. Agility is more about the way you tackle things from a mindset. Agility does not mean not doing traditional management. It means doing traditional management in an agile method in the process as well as from an agile mindset. So agility is more of a growth mindset, being nimble on the feet and starting from reworking. See, we in HR place a lot of importance on practices and tools, processes. I think it's more about building and solving real world problem and then writing the precedents. See, in HR, I think each one of us spend a lot of time putting processes, writing processes, but I think it's more about solving problems and then documenting the whole piece. It's also about people over process. It's also about creating value. If HR can focus on building value, creating value, I think that's where the journey starts. So once those things are laid out, the process is a continuous ongoing process.
Figure out the value and then build processes around it. Rajendra, what is your experience say?
Yeah, so I think like the panel members are talking about, COVID has been you know, a very beautiful context for all of us to really think about what agility actually means. And across the organization, I have, you know, whosoever we speak to, largely would understand that, you know, the amount of time people spend, sudden shift from, you know, one ways of working to moving to teams, bringing in a lot of collaborative tools to work around. So a lot of those things actually happened. And I believe that agility is all about, either it's all about process, mindset, or it's a framework. Now, in each of these, you know, when we, if in the HR context, if we were to test it out, whether we are agile or no, you know, what is important is for us to really understand the patterns of conversations. Now, patterns of conversation typically will be that either I need data, I need more, you know, information to serve customer, etc., etc. The plethora of things that, you know, one would hear about. But what's important for us to do is to, you know, use our gut. While you are working and while we are evolving our own methods of working, we need to continue to evolve. We need to, and in that process, we look at multiple data points. If I have to take a decision, I don't need to really wait longer for any decisions to take place because there is some data available in front of me, and there is gut that you know, I have developed over a period of time that taking this decision might make me successful. So I think being able to take those kinds of things and probably eliminating as much of noise from you know, what is expected. So our ability to really go back deep and seek questions in terms of what is the expectation? Is the whole is expectation or part is expectation? If part is the expectation that you understand, then probably resolve that rather than doing everything you know, together. So agility would revolve around, you know, how an athlete would take you know, a position, moving backward, forward, sideways, and seeing the context and then taking you know, the right steps. So agility is all about being quick to respond to the context. And in HR's context, I believe, we create talent management practices, we create performance management practices. I believe that, we set certain things for a year, and then we live with that for a year. We don't make any changes. Framework remains same largely, and there would be some people who constantly evolve certain things, but largely the structure is static. I don't know whether that really works in the current context. So are we moving backward, forward to really take the right situation, right positions? That's one. The other is that, that there are plethora of opportunities available for us to look at whether what kind of a structure would play a critical role in terms of defining an outcome very quickly. I think agility is all about, therefore, to say that keep evolving, keep responding, keep creating value, and keep delivering the value to your customers, whether internal, external. So that's about it.
Very well articulated. Kavita, the pandemic changed the rules of the game for most businesses, and most businesses had to adapt, to a different environment, to a different stimuli which was around us. Functions had to adapt as well. So we all started using Teams, we all started using technology, but fundamentally, the way you used to run your HR function earlier, what changes did that see? What changes did you bring about in the new paradigm?
I think everything. From the way we operated to the way we are probably currently working. Especially I would give example of my organization. I represent a news organization, and for us 70% of our workforce works from ground zero, and we are into a business of 24/7. So for us to go completely hybrid or probably even work from home was an unthinkable option. To create work environment where people are reporting, yet in a conventional way, if there is a situation, a reporter will go with a cameraman. Now how do you do that in a pandemic situation? Are they not risking their lives? Now imagine if you have to rework from that. So I think for us in HR, the work started from business. How does the business operate? And we rework and customize our HR processes accordingly. So while the technology was used, using drones and creating more coverages, I think for us to ensure that the kind of processes that supported them were completely rewritten. The kind of ways of working was completely rewritten. I still remember the times we actually did do away with attendance, leave, all those stuff. You're working, you become output driven. And the measurements were redefined, completely going output based from a time office, time management kind of a thing. So I think every process had to be changed more from the perspective that are you creating value for your customers, for your company, for your employees. And I think with that as a backdrop, when you start working, then the paradigm changes.
Got it. Dr. Kumar, you run L&T, one of the largest companies in India. What changes did you see or you brought about?
See, as he rightly said, how do you adapt to change, right? Whole lot of things. Let us keep COVID example separate. Even without COVID, your employees are using Uber, Ola, he is using Swiggy. The experience he gets, how fast he does, and the type of your attendance system and the leave system you have to change, right? Immediately look at bringing the similar type of experience outside. So as he said, adding value to the business. Suddenly one day you stop, we have a process. I take one example of a process of an assessment center, development center, we call it as a development center for different levels. We have a competency framework. It's a 2-day program where we call everybody to Lonavala. There's a batch of 6 assessors. You do the in-tray, all this whole process of assessment center. Next day giving a one-on-one feedback and they make an individual. Totally stopped. So can I say that next 2 years I cannot do assessment centers, because based on which we have very other processes. Immediately we have to look at it. We looked at which are customize the exercises accordingly, which can be done virtually. That all the process, all the assessors were, most of them were 1 or 2 from consultants, others from the retired employees. Train them in using those new methods, and we rolled out. So how fast you can adapt to change, look at it and make it relevant to the business and add value to business. I can have n number of examples where we did it accordingly.
Got it. So let's
Another major thing is you cannot go for a long time like earlier. You get a system or a process or an app, and by that time you implement and make it operational, you find a better system in the market. So I cannot say I get stuck to this immediately. You have to take a decision, scrap it or move it or move to keep maintaining that experience.
Correct. So should we shift the discussion now from agile HR to agile workforce, right? Because I think that's what HR is also trying to drive, right? So Rajendra, if I can bring you in on that, how does one do that? How does one create an agile workforce in today's context?
So I think, there are various structures. So when you look at a hierarchical structure, then there are command controls and there are a plethora of those nuances which actually holds back the speed sometimes. But even in today's context, if you look at how consulting firms work, consulting firms typically will have a resource pool, which is expert resource pool, and on the other side there are some project leads typically. Now if there is a project that one gets, there are set of resource pools which are available. You source them, and instead of, so in a structure that we follow, we tend to hoard people. But in a holacracy kind of this structure, it is all about sourcing people from a pool of experts. Now, so organization will become far more nimble if the relationship that works between the teams that are delivering are more from a project led concepts to a product led concepts. One, that they keep evolving every time they implement projects. They keep reflecting back. So today what happens is when you end a project, there's nobody who's reflecting back on what happened through the project. But if you do reflection on where did we go wrong, where did we take the course correction, etc., then that becomes something which gets remained in our memories, and therefore somewhere or the other those scenarios would emerge that these were the pain areas which we had to correct. So that's one way to really ensure that there is a repertoire of information remains available, and instead of hoarding, we actually do sharing of resources, and that kind of org structures probably will be far more suitable in this kind of a context. The other is that there are multiple opportunities of having. Gig has been one of the prime opportunity for people to really hire for. Today, when there is a position that opens up, we end up going to into a hiring process. But probably there is a way to really have a gig expert to train our people and then move on, and team learns through that. So one could actually create all kinds of nimble structures which would be far more effective than the current hierarchical structure that we follow.
So Chandra, there's been a lot of talk about this entire gig economy, which just Rajendra touched upon, and how it can really make the workforce more agile, more nimble. Maybe cost structures can be realigned as well. Anything you'd like to add from what you are experiencing and implementing in Aditya Birla Group?
So actually the group is vast and it has many businesses, and I think we are all experimenting with gig. We are talking about gig. We are, and now I am talking from a manufacturing process where it is really old world a little bit in that sense. But we are talking to our managers and leaders about having a gig workforce. But I understand other places like financial services, I know that they are working with a gig workforce. But in our case, I think because developing those specializations take time. Like, because I need in my chemical factories, I need chemical engineers. And I think I will not easily find a gig, chemical engineer. So that is a challenge, and I think mainly it is also a mindset challenge. And so I must say that we are very far away in this journey, and I think many things have to fall in place. In India, we need to have a proper gig economy, we need to have maybe profiles of people willing to take the risk and working in gig. What happens is that people initially they will come in as gig workers, but the minute they get a permanent job, they will leave. So we don't have that kind of setup here. So yeah, to answer your question about gig, I think there are challenges and we are not yet there, but we will get there. As the workforce matures, as the workforce knows that job security is not something that they are chasing, I think we will get there slowly.
Kavita, would you have a different perspective from your industry, because yours is media?
For me, 25% of my workforce is gig.
25%.
25%, absolutely, because especially in digital, the kind of, digital and media especially does not make money. It's yet to make that kind of money, but it's very manpower intensive. So what do you do? How do you ensure your wage costs are in line? And it's a real life business challenge. So what we do is we do a lot of these students who are passing out. So we catch them young. We have a full model of student journalism and contributors and freelancers, and there is a whole plethora of people working. And we have a model where at least this is able to be a sustainable model. So for us it works better, and for us we don't really need people who comes and work for 9 hours. My job requires you to contribute 5 stories and I'm good with that. So it just works. Also for hiring tech, nobody wants to, no good tech guy wants to join a media company. They will join a product company. Why will they join a media company? So I think for us it worked well. We've been able to hire people sitting out of anywhere in the country and world where they contribute for certain piece. But yes, like Chandra said, there are challenges, especially for tech heads. They want the source code to be with them.
Yeah.
So it's a mindset battle. But once you win, they realize that yes, it's doable. I think for us it worked well. In my company, we have hired on roll only 5 people, but there are 60 techies who are working all over the world for us. So it just works well.
Dr. Jayakumar, anything from your world you want to add on this?
See, predominantly we are into EPC business, okay? EPC, manufacturing and services. When I say EPC, it's engineering, procurement and construction. If you look at roads, bridges, tunnels, stadiums, we construct. So, and most of these tenders are based on L1 technology, that is lowest person will get. So, the cost control, timely completion is the essence of the, time is the essence of the contract to get it completed. We went into a digitalization. So, what is happening is, a whole amount of effort has been put in digitalization in the last 4 or 5 years. Right from all our equipments has been put with RFIDs. From there we get a data, so preventive maintenance, analytics, all those. But skilling, reskilling and multi-skilling of our people, that has become the biggest challenge. And when you come to alternate models of give, that may not work at all. Even work from home will not work in our context. So as a person has to be in the project, has to be get done. So we have a lot of effort is on bringing in technology, including we have an option of Uberization of workmen. That is more than 3 lakh contract laborers and migrant workmen are there with us. With their Aadhaar card, we have an app like Uber. Once they leave the project, if they want to come back, whenever there is a requirement, a message is flashed. They have to just call, give a missed call in that, and our people will contact them and get them into that. So, training them, getting them into this, that is the biggest challenge.
I see. In fact, you touched upon my next thought that I thought I'll put in the panel, which is work from home, right? So to say, the most visible HR trend, every company is having their own battles with it. Some love it, some don't love it as much. So, do you think it's in the entire agile workforce equation, it's a very strong pillar?
See, when they were talking about alternate employment models, we are looking at it, okay? We have in fact put a task force to look at whether we can have temporary people, some design we can outsource, all those things we are working. Work from home is a very, very distant dream. You cannot construct a bridge or a dam there in working from home. So immediately people say, yes, your office-based people can work from home, right? But it is 80% of my people work in projects. Hardly 20% HR, finance, supply chain, these are the people sitting in office. And already there is a feeling that the people working in sites are struggling. 40-degree temperature, they are in the site and they are working, and they call the office-based, in fact in a construction company, office-based people are overheads. They call it as AC-PC culture. You are sitting in AC with a PC, whereas I am struggling in site. So allowing this 20 people to work from home will be really demotivate the other people. So first thing we did is we went to the office so that they are also working at it. So it's a very, very distant dream working from home in an.
What about your technology businesses?
Yeah, that's again a nice question. I have two challenges. One is after this pandemic, my EPC business people say we should have work from home, at least as a perk, right? At least in a month, at least some couple of days we should work from home. They are telling it is as a perk you give it to us. Whereas the other side, my problem is getting those people back into the office. They don't want to come. Then we started opening satellite offices in different locations and asking people to come there and start working. So one side is how do I introduce work from home? Other side is how do I get them back into office? So it's a very interesting.
Kavita, your experience, your thoughts, yours is a very different industry.
Yeah, work from home doesn't work for us also, but I think hybrid is there. I mean, it's going to be there, a part of our life, because talent war has become very intense, and I think all of us in our own industries are battling with it. So I think to get the best of the talent, it's going to be there, but the business will always. So I think that the point is that to get that right formula where you are able to create the synergy and an environment where work from home is allowed. It's a lot of trust based. You have to allow innovations. The leaders have to learn, unlearn and relearn to create that culture. And what is more important and challenging is to ensure that you breed innovation as a continuous process. Now it doesn't matter where you're sitting as long as you are output driven. But while these things sound good, in reality when it comes to it, there is always a distrust element. You're sitting at home not working and so on. So in our culture what we did, at least in our organization, we've allowed that working 4 days from and 3 days from office is mandatory. Rest you take a call.
So 3 from office and.
Exactly, and people can choose, every department can choose. That's also largely to do with the fact that we don't want to take additional office space. So, it just helps us in rationalizing. And I've realized that the motivation in teams are higher. They realize they have the flexibility.
Right.
So see, it's a perceived freedom. You let them choose, it works better, and the leaders are also, but it's a culture shift, and it needs a lot more coaching and, working around.
So we are still early on in the evolution curve on work from home. Rajendra, if I can, I was actually having a talk with some of the heads of HR, and there was a very interesting topic which came up, which is in terms of potentially differential salary structures, right? And then there is this whole thing of that, hey, we are more about productivity and not about face time, right? So, so the thought process that came on the table was that, do you look at lesser fixed pay, if not overall pay, right, for people who are choosing for flexibility? And what do you think are employees, in case you have any perspective from your organization?
Sure. So we also tried checking this out, that when in the thick of COVID times, that people aren't willing to come to office. So we were thinking that let's try and see what are those components that we can try and eliminate or negotiate with the employees, saying that this part of this you'll have to forego, and we'll let you work from home. The amount that we were able to arrive at was so piddly that we never wanted to really initiate that discussion at all. In a context of say 200 odd crores kind of compensation kitty, we were talking about 30 odd lakhs. It did not really make sense for us to discuss those kinds of numbers. Secondly, I think people believe, and in today's time, I think post the COVID has come, the whole discussion around that, some bit of balance of life is required. That's seeped in our minds actually. So even when candidates come for interview, they ask whether, there is a flexibility of, hybrid work culture. So that has come in our ways of talking. Now the question comes that if I'm responsible for my outcome, my deliverables, why should the organization restrict me to come to office all the time?
How does it matter where I work from?
Correct. So I think, these are typically the, the kind of Maslow theories that you have already gone through that, and young generations typically, they'll feel bad about the conversation and bad about the organizations when these kinds of conversations are striked to say that, lose your comp and then come. To my mind, I think we should not talk on those lines. Probably the traits that individuals have, that if the guy is responsible, limit the conversation around outcomes that are required and leave the person to deliver on that. So that 5 to 9 to 5 culture, those things will probably have to go away over a period of time. And it's more stakeholder led. So as managers, we are ready to let people take work from home kind of scenarios, but whose stake is higher? That is the decider in this whole process. If the businessman's stakes are higher, then he wants to control. If a manager's responsibility is higher, that if not done this, you will have this, he will call people to office. So it's all about this psyche. It's a mental mindset that if I control, then I will take the decision that people must come. So Philippines as a country is letting a policy come around which saying that work from home all the time.
Yeah.
But we are still evolving. So I think that this conversation will continue for some more time till we arrive at who takes the call.
Chandra, what is your experience in a large group that you are part of? Is the employee willing to trade, a little bit of pay for flexibility?
Okay. See, I cannot say that because we have not had those conversations. We have had some employees who kind of are now doing complete work from home kind of thing, and but I don't think we are yet having any compensation conversation with them. And but my gut feeling is that it may not be very welcome, because today it is really about talent, and it is also a talent marketplace. So you are actually paying people for what they are getting in the marketplace. So you are not having any component wise, for office you are getting this much. You are paying them for what they bring to the role, and that they will say whether I am at home or I am working from office or home, I am me and I am bringing in that know-how and talent and also.
But then just taking that argument forward, and then people are now talking of satellite offices, especially technology firms are saying we'll open something in Jaipur, something in Ahmedabad, right, which was not the case. Now, for the same function, you would not be paying the same compensation, right, in Jaipur and Ahmedabad? Yes, please. Anybody.
So one is that, we tried this, that, people of the positions which are in Bombay can move to our,
the tier
plant
2
locations in, say, Gujarat or somewhere else. The talent available, people don't want to go to those locations, and, the talent availability. So mandi mein milta hai. I'm saying that the, talents are available in those pockets where, the market is moving around. So they are not willing. They have settled life. The kids are studying, hardship, being alone. So there are plethora of those issues. People don't want to go. If people want to go to those locations, they actually want to take more money from the organization.
They want more
They're
money
saying that
to
it
go.
is correct. They're asking for more money because they're saying it's a hardship for me.
Being at my hometown.
Correct. Not at the hometown is not the, but
Achha.
you will try and get them closer to your work locations.
Got it.
So Ahmedabad, if our operations are in Gujarat. So ability to really attract, retain talent in those geographies is a concern.
Got it. Dr. Jayakumar, you want
See,
to
first of all, this satellite office came because we couldn't bring them everybody to. Interestingly, our Mindtree during that pandemic time, Diwali gift to be, so they just sent us mail asking them where to send the Diwali gift. There we got the exact location of people who are there. There we saw 600 people in Calcutta and we do not have an office in Calcutta. So I thought, why not you create an office in Calcutta so that they can be there.
Right.
But can I reduce the salary because they are in Calcutta? That cannot be done. But if it is in some places in the tier 2 cities, if their offices are there, the new recruitment when I do, that may be, if it's a good talent available, then the salary levels can be slightly lower.
Yes,
but
for the new recruitment. I'm
New
saying.
recruitment,
Yeah.
but not the existing person because I have put you, and we have done all the work on how much infrastructure we will save, most of it is our own. So we are not saving anything on those aspect at all. That expenses is there in addition to this.
Got it, got it. So let me throw a very open thing to the panel, right? What do you think is the most dominant HR trend in your mind, which you think is here to stay? Maybe we can start with Rajendra.
So I think hybrid is definitely there to stay. To my mind, this whole skill, skill pools and skill resources, I think organizations would typically tend to move in that direction for being, optimal in terms of the cost structures, etc. There's this one case I was reading, which is about Unilever and Vodacom, that agreement that they have done, that they will trade their employees to different sectors.
Vodafone and
Unilevers. So they have done this contract between the two, saying that if they need digital savvy resources, Unilever can pick up from Vodafone and Vodafone can pick up from Unilever. So how do you leverage it beyond your structures of the organization? These are the kind of conversations that are happening. To my mind, I think these are there to stay because for whatever conditions of the economies, because of supply chain constraints or commodity prices hikes, there's a need to really keep your product costs in checks. How do you do that? These are the innovations that are happening, I guess.
Okay, Kavita, can we come to you?
Yeah, sure. So you're right. I think it's a very interesting case study when I was going through. So I think a few things that stays to my mind and challenges that we face will be multi-generation people working in one organization. Any organization has 3 to 4 generation working. Gen Z is very different from maybe a millennial to a baby boomer or Gen X. So the problem is again the complexities goes up because maybe a Gen Z guy is your boss or millennial is reporting and maybe the senior. So the ways of working, the challenges and getting all of them to perform and think at the same level, at the same speed, the agility, I think that itself is a bigger challenge. Ability to deal with gray, a lot of gray zone in business because what was once upon a time right is no more relevant today. So I think that is another piece. HR moving from a project mindset to a product mindset, that's another piece which I believe is something that we all have to work on. We can't be working on processes and deadlines, we have to be working on a continuous innovation, being a product. I mean thinking from a product perspective that we are a product company, HR is a product function and we are serving the business from that perspective. So it's a continuous ongoing process. So I think these are few things HR guys are really going to be working with and trends that's going to be the top of the mind pieces. That
HR as a product, that's an interesting thought. Chandra?
So I think that there is not going to be any loyalty factor in future. So I think this is a room full of HR colleagues of mine. So do not expect loyalty from employees who join you. And do not be surprised of resumes or do not reject resumes which are showing less than 2 years of working in a place and the person is then do not expect loyalty, and because of that HR's challenge is of developing and maintaining organization culture. I think that's the challenge for all of us in future, that how do we build that culture among people who are just going to be with you for year and a half, 18 months maximum turnaround. How do you make them start being productive, let's say, from day one, and how do you give them an enabling culture, and what kind of managers you bring in, who are also going to be development oriented managers. So these are the challenges, I would say, in HR future.
Dr. Jayakumar, one trend that you think is here to stay?
Yeah, I fully agree. It will be hybrid. Not at different levels, it may happen based on the industry. I will take a simple example. Yesterday there was a People Matters conference in Delhi. So I was a speaker, I went there, huge, more than 3,000 people, so many halls. I completed, I came back. And when I came here, today in Landmark office, some of my colleagues were sitting, he said, yeah, I heard your speech yesterday. I was quite surprised. How did you hear? It was in Delhi. It was also virtually done. And then I felt, but you would not have seen the audience and all, was it effective? He said, no, the camera was automatically changing. Whenever there's it was moving. And they said it was really effective, we could do that. So this is going to stay. Next, the learning styles have changed now. That digital learning took a peak and it is going to remain, at least hybrid. Even for us, we fully depend on, we have 17, 18 learning centers, LDA, Institute of Project Management, etc. But during that period, we moved to digital. Now, even for those programs, we have pre-course material in between. So it is, lot of it has become merged. So learning is definitely going to stay. The digital thing which took over during that period, went into Teams, Zoom, getting into remote working. So that is like a tipping point, it started. So that momentum will continue, based on which we are getting so much of data points. So analytics is going to take over. This all, it's leveraged because of this. And talking about the don't expect loyalty, which still we are trying to hold on, because our company, I have put 35 years in Larsen & Toubro, and our long service award starts with 20 years, now we brought it to 15 years. So today I find companies with 2 years, 1 year giving award for remaining. So we are trying to how to bring in the purpose, the pride, and we do initiated OD programs across different divisions. The theme is putting the L&T8 inside the person, right? L&T8 inside, we call it L&T8. So that is a whole lot of work happening in this area to ensure that we still continue that culture of holding.
I see, absolutely. One quick last question, which is before I open it to the audience, and I'm sure all of you would be itching to ask your set of questions. I just read, is it Swiggy, if I'm not mistaken, right, which has now a formal moonlighting policy. Yeah, so I just read it, I think yesterday.
They are going to allow their employees to moonlight.
Yeah, so any thoughts anybody has to share on that?
So I believe that, it is, having multiple contracts as an individual, in any case is a better, proposition for an employee. That, in case of some, downturn, etc., one still has 2 or 3 options to fall back on. So from the point of view of an employee, it is just fine. And I think that's the trend that might follow over a period of time. But moonlighting actually distracts you because I think, anything that gets incentivized, anything that has monetary impacts, you tend to probably swing towards the direction where you will tend to earn more at the cost of other. So the disadvantages of this could be a little higher, and as long as the contracts are very contractual in nature, it is fine. But I think if it's a full-time kind of a job, moonlighting to my mind probably should be avoided.
Yeah, go ahead.
It's far away from L&T to think of that.
Absolutely.
In fact, during this pandemic, There are some consultants started a business to find out that, you know, based on the PF code number, they will background verify, they will say he is having 3 offers in 3 places. They have a tie up with the Provident Fund office, and based on which they give you. So it may not work in there.
I think within an organization should develop entrepreneurs.
Right.
And because that's what, you know, best companies in the world, Google's, 3M's, they do that. They allow their people to moonlight for a few whatever hours or, you know, days of the month or something like that. Do something else, follow your passion project, but declare it to the organization so that, you know, it can help in the overall growth. I think it is the future. Today's youngsters, the really bright ones, challenging ones, they want to be stretched, and organizations should get into this bandwagon.
Yeah.
And that's what we are talking about, agility.
Yeah.
You know, coming back to where we started the discussion, agility is about experimentation, and organizations have to experiment, and I think HR should take a lead in that and encourage leaders that why don't you try it, you know, give him some time off.
Yeah.
Well, anyways, we get 30 days off, right, in a year, so give them 30 days to try something on their own.
Absolutely.
Coming to this internal practice we have an Institute of Project Management. We have for certain projects, which is, we have a portal where it is done. If you are interested, you can do. In a project management institute, you can go and handle certain classes. So we call it as professor of practice. You get a certain points, you can accumulate it, and that can be used for your doing some other program outside, being a membership in a professional institute. Such things we encourage within the organization, not outside the.
Sure, sure.
In our business, it's very different.
Yeah.
You know, almost everybody's moonlighting. You know, everybody's writing a book or a theater or, you know, you name it. If there are voice artists, there are sound artists. My anchors are also, you know, in a regional movie, you will see they are the film, you know, they're doing side movies and so on. You can't stop. If you want the good talent, you have to allow. So it's all about declaring and doing. In our organization, it is allowed. As long as it doesn't impact the work, it doesn't impact the outcome, we are good with it. And that's probably the reason almost X level and above, you've seen all journalists, this is my new book, okay, fantastic. But as long as you're able to manage it and your work is not hampered, it's allowed.
Got it. Okay, I'm going to, you know, open the floor now to the audience. I'm sure, you know, you would have heard those, what I would call as pearls of wisdom, you know, different perspectives, such deep perspectives coming from our panelists. So anybody has a question, if you can just raise a hand and we'll have the mic.
Good evening. My name is Anuj Kathuria. I represent Vari Energies. I wear 2 hats, one of a HR head and one of a business strategy integration head. My question is, we started with agility. Now, in this experience economy where employees demand hyper-personalization and hyper-contextualization of experience, which is something which takes a lot of time to build in any organization. And I'm all in for it when I wear my HR hat. The moment I wear my business hat, I can't seem to reconcile with what my HR mind says, because my initial investments into these are not going to yield any outcomes, at least for the next 2 to 3 years time. I'm in a business phase where I have to focus on EBITDA, growth and profitability all at 3 times. I have to kind of make a compromise some way or the other. So my question is, have you experienced these kind of situations? And if yes, how do you balance the business side? Because I seem to struggle with that every day.
Who would like to take that question? Yes, of course.
See, I think your question is very valid, and I have myself been a part of a large HRIS implementation, and it takes a lot of time. And yes, it is for deep pockets. But that being said, I think today there are many lighter versions, and there are 2 people company, 3 people company developing apps, and they are not very expensive. So as Dr. here was saying, you can experiment. You know, okay, this app, let's try it for some time, and employees are not happy, let's give them something else. Why I tell you why this is important is basically the future challenge for India itself. And you know, India is a very, you know, we can say demographic dividend. But the way I see it is India's growth will be constrained because of lack of talent. And it is fascinating. We are such a, so many, we have the population, but we don't have the talent. So as an organization, as a business head, can you afford not to give the employee the experience? That is the question we have to ask. So it is really a very wicked problem here, that you have to invest in the technology to give the employees the experience, because you want to attract the talent, you want to retain the talent, you want to make that talent useful, because like I was saying, the talent is a 24-month turnaround. So within 24 months, you need to give him or her the tools that he can, start contributing and working, where you have to then invest in technology. So I don't know if I have, answered your question.
Let
yeah.
me
Yes,
add
Doctor.
on to
Yes.
that. Whole HR is there to add value to business. Okay. You are looking at I don't know whether you looked at it at a quarter-on-quarter thing. But if you look at a long term, does this investment add value in terms of retention, in terms of attraction, in terms of this? Maybe this quarter you may have that expense can have a hit, but if you look at a long term, if you have to sustain and grow, because it is again demand and supply. The market, as she rightly said, you have to attract the best talent, you have to retain them, and if you are long term, then you have to make a balance, whether this will add value to business. Then if it is there, then you have to take a call and invest today. Otherwise, you can look at it.
Okay, so I think, we could have gone on and on. I was just enjoying it so much. I'm sure, the audience also felt it that way. Thank you all so much. And so on that note, thank you so much, everyone. Thanks. Can we have a round of applause for all our fantastic panelists?
Thank you for having us. Thank you very much.
Ladies and gentlemen, may I request all of you to please put your hands together as we thank our panelists for their time right here. Let us begin by thanking Mr. Rajendra Mehta for sharing his views here with us. Thank you so very much, sir. Of course, let me also take this moment and thank Ms. Kavita Dasan for joining us and for sharing her thoughts. Thank you so much, ma'am. Ms. Chandra Bhattacharjee, thank you, ma'am. It's been a delight listening to you. And like you said, let's give that time off to our HR leaders to really evolve with time. A big thank you to Mr. C. Jayakumar. We do believe that HR leaders play a very, very important role. And as I request all of you to please inch closer, give us a moment to really capture all of you in the same frame. It's absolutely amazing to have all of you, and we'd like to make sure that we create a beautiful memory out of this. Joining us for our exclusive panel discussion on the rise of agile leaders, making the shift. It has been a delight having all of you here on stage with us. And once again, thank you for those questions, our audience members.